Is the Fallout TV show on Amazon Prime the best video game adaptation we've seen yet? My name's Kevin, also known as the Golden Bolt, and I'm here with three of my fellow co-crubbers to pretend to answer that very question poorly. I'm here with that Trav guy. Hi, Trav.
Good morning.
I'm Hale. I'm Hale. I'm here with All Hail Buckets, the dancing man. Hi, Nico.
Yes.
And I'm here with Moriarty, our resident VTuber.
Hello, I'm not a VTuber.
Oh.
Very defensive.
So we're here to talk about the Fallout show because we all had some pretty generally positive thoughts on it, I think. We'll get into that. We haven't talked pretty much at all about it because we've been saving it for this discussion here. There will be at least mild spoilers for the show, so if you don't want to go in knowing anything, probably come back later. But before we get into that, I wanted to talk a little bit about our relative experience levels with Fallout. So, Trav, let's start with you. Which Fallouts have you played, and how long have you played them for, broadly?
Oh boy. So I'll keep it as quick as I can. I played Fallout 3 first when I was in high school, sometime in there. Thought it was good at the time. Basically rushed through the main story quest. Didn't know why people loved it so much. Played Fallout 4. Thought it was fine at the time. And then it wasn't until a couple years back that I finally played Fallout 1 and 2. I get what people are talking about with them. I think Fallout 2 at this point is my favorite of the series. And I have... after that, I played New Vegas. Also, I get why everyone loves it. I've probably put in combined hours of half of my life into them. No, not really, but too much. I didn't count before going into this. I know I have at least 100 hours in New Vegas as of
That's weak shit.
From the last year alone. Yeah,
Pick it up. Pick it up. Em, let's jump over to you. Have you played Fallout Tactics Brotherhood of Steel?
I have.
I played that one too. I played that one too. I forgot about that one.
I'm a big Fallout fan. I think Fallout's a really cool universe. I'm not such a huge fan of the Bethesda specific ones, so Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. But I'm a huge fan of New Vegas. I'm a huge fan of Fallout 2. I'm even a fan of the things like Fallout Shelter, and I'm such a fan of that I even got the APK for the Chinese Fallout Shelter online.
Okay.
Yeah, because this is very neat, super neat. So I like Fallout a lot, and I've played it all. I've got a lot of time in all of the games. For a long time there, it used to be like a comfort game for me to go and play Fallout 2 and just try to become a boxing porn star every time.
Okay, I can respect that. Before we jump to you, Nico, because you're the odd man out here, I'll say my experience with the Fallout games. 3 was the one that I got into first, simply because I wasn't a PC gamer back in the day. So 3 was a combination of being my first Fallout and also being one of my first, of the modern open world style of game. Obviously, it's not like a Ubisoft-y game. But that was one of those early next-gen games at the time that I had picked up right when I got my 360. So that had a big impact. I was, for a while, pretty encyclopedic with my knowledge of Fallout. I've played all of them except for not much of Tactics, and I'm hazy on 1 and 2 now that I've gone back to them, just because I've only played them enough to beat them. Most of my knowledge came from wiki diving back in the day. So yeah, I've played all of them. I even played Fallout 76 for the first time recently. We'll talk about that in a little while, but I did everything in 3 in New Vegas. I'm talking 700 plus hours in New Vegas. So, and 503 probably. So yeah, a big Fallout fan for a long time at the very least. 4 was the reason I bought a PS4, and then I played it. And yeah, Nico, you're the odd man out because you've played a tiny bit of Fallout.
Yeah, I played a little bit of 3 and a little bit of New Vegas. I don't remember much of New Vegas. I know that I got to Megaton in 3. That was the furthest that I'd gotten, but otherwise it was just pop the disc in, make a character, play a different game. Pop the disc in, make a character, get a little bit further, play a different game.
You're the average Skyrim player.
Pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So that's good, though, because we brought you in and suggested you watch this show to get the perspective of someone who knows at most the broad strokes about the games, to see how good it is as a standalone show, because that is an important takeaway. But Trav, what's your general takeaway on the show?
Oh man. Okay. I'll let this speak for itself. I went in only expecting to watch 1, maybe 2 episodes. Ended up binging the whole thing that night. I was immediately hooked. I still think that the story, not perfect, but it was really engaging all the way through. It's a good serialized narrative, and I came out of it thinking this might be the best video game adaptation I've ever watched. I have not seen The Last of Us. I have not seen Spider-Man: Homecoming, so I don't know. But but no, I really enjoyed it. I have a lot to say about it, but I will just on how I feel about it. Amazing. I loved it.
Okay. Em, let's jump over to you again in a broad sense before we get super in the weeds. What did you think?
So to be clear, I enjoyed this show because I'm going to be very critical of it during this entire podcast. I want to be clear from the beginning that I did enjoy it. And I think visually it's a stunning realization of the Fallout universe. But I am critical of it. I think it has some problems. Most shows do. I don't think this is the best video game adaptation of all time. But I do think that if this is the worst video game adaptation that we get for a long time, that's a pretty awesome high bar, especially considering Zelda and Minecraft and the Borderlands movie coming up.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. I'll again jump in because Nico, you're the outsider experience here. I will say that I think it is the best Fallout story that has existed since Bethesda got involved. Outside of New Vegas, because they didn't, they didn't touch it. New Vegas,
incredibly fair. Yes.
And given that may be a low bar to some degree, but I think for how much Bethesda's Fallout stories differed from the prior saga of games, I think that this was also the most respectful and faithful to the old games stories. So for reference for you, Nico, there's a common meme on the internet that Todd Howard hates all the old Fallout games and anything that Bethesda didn't make because he frequently retcons them. Given he's not the writer, so people just pin it on the guy whose face is on the front of the E3 conference or whatever. But yeah, it's enough. It happens frequently enough that it's noticeable. So for this to have been, go ahead, Jeff.
Just for quick context, the first two games, which New Vegas is a proper sequel to, takes place in California. New Vegas, obviously in Vegas, still really close to that West Coast area. But all of the Bethesda games from 3, 4, and 76, from my understanding, all take place on the East Coast, and they kind of use that as a soft, clean slate so that they don't really touch everything. Kind of just
DC,
do their own
Boston, and New Jersey.
Yeah. Well, West Virginia, and then now New Jersey.
And then
New Jersey.
Yeah, so those games had a lot of shifting. For example, the Brotherhood of Steel went from being just kind of a intentionally boring faction to being the token good guys in the Bethesda games, and they got a little bit more character in Fallout 4 at least, but not really. The show, I love that the show makes them boring on purpose. I'm pretty sure it makes them boring on purpose just to call back to that, and I love that. I really enjoyed it. It kind of confirmed a lot of things that were hinted at in the games that fans got upset about being confirmed, which was interesting. We'll get into that in a bit.
That was fun.
But Nico, what did you think as coming in as a show consumer rather than a Fallout game consumer?
Yeah, well, it definitely sounds to me like there was something that had you played the games, perhaps the show in its totality may not have hit as hard for you, but I didn't have that problem. It hit super hard for me. The plot line, right? And like everything up to, I don't want to spoil anything for folks who maybe haven't played the games, right? Because this, the last few episodes, I think, hit me with something that I just was not expecting, was not ready for, was something that made me go and research the Fallout series, like outside of the show, and just see how long,
this is a spoiler cast,
going, right?
I'm curious, Nico, what are you talking about specifically there?
I think we could get into spoilers now.
Yeah,
have had 10 minutes.
It's been a couple. Yeah, if you're washing dishes, hopefully your dishes are clean by now.
We will give you 5 seconds to run over to your speaker to turn it off. Nico, count us down.
Go. No, just go.
Yeah,
we're not counting down.
Right. Well, it's the ending, dude. It's the vaults being the social experiments. I didn't know that. I played Fallout 3, a little of it. I played a little of New Vegas. I don't remember much, especially don't remember the plots. And especially, I don't think the plots like even start with that type of a trajectory, right? So like, I don't know. I didn't know what I was getting myself into, and I came out of it with a huge appreciation for the world and for the just the concept.
A lot of the vault stuff, I will say, for your reference, Nico, you wouldn't have gotten to because a lot of it is subtext, or I shouldn't say subtext, but it's optional content that you find by exploring other vaults. Like Fallout 3 has a vault full of Garys. It's just one dude. I'm explaining it. I'm explaining it to you. Like it's the vaults are never a thing that they really actively play up as a major plot point in the modern games. They're obviously a clear plot point in 1 and 2, but
just the concept.
World. I'm saying that's why you wouldn't have seen it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%.
And a lot of the stuff related to that, for example, they play up the idea in the show of Vault Tech being the ones that fired off the bombs, which is a thing that was never outright said, but had been hinted at quite a few times in like the text logs of different Fallout games in computers.
Yeah.
In the Vault Tech HQ in Fallout 3, for example. And I remember distinctly as when I was playing that in, 09 when I first played it, somewhere around there, seeing that and being in that Vault Tech HQ and being like amazed at that revelation. And so the show doing that directly was one of my favorite things about the show, because although it misses a little bit of the point of, they don't ever acknowledge who the U.S. was at war with because they want this show to air in other places.
So actually, sorry, I don't mean to be that guy. So they don't acknowledge it in the show. That's true. In like the actual visual presentation of the show, they don't acknowledge it. But there are resources. So how Amazon has X-Ray, which is human tagged, but it's like the things about like the actors and stuff. They also have like bonus content that goes with the show. So if you navigate the menus and you go and look at the show on Amazon, it mentions who the U.S. is at war with. It mentions China.
Okay, well, good. That's more than I expected because
because the closest we got was, I think it was either the end of episode 1 or early episode 2. We see some kind of like Chinese CCCP like satellite crashed on the ground or in the floor.
I think that's Russia.
No, in Fallout, that's China.
Okay. Yeah, because in our world it's the CCP. In Fallout, there's an
like we're the USSA in Fallout's terms.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's weird. So like there's references to it. There's the propaganda.
They talk about Anchorage a bunch with the time the flashbacky stuff.
I never realized that though. I never realized that they didn't explicitly mention the Chinese.
Yeah, no, it stood out to me. Not in necessarily a bad way. I understood why they did it, but it makes it seem like the real villain was capitalism, which is always kind of what it was in Fallout, and people got upset about that.
That's always been the theme, There's literally okay, so for Nico's context, there's literally a dialogue option at the end of Fallout 2 where you confront the big bad of the game, the U.S. government. You approach the president and the vice president, and you tell you tell the vice president, you have the option of telling him like, hey, you guys are kind of part of the problem and why everything's gone to shit. He replies, I'm not part of the problem, I'm a Republican. And then the only dialogue option that you have to say in response is, that's what I said, part of the problem. That's the only option you have to reply.
That's really fun.
but yeah, that was one of my favorite parts, was that they took the essence of the Fallout show, of the Fallout games, and were able to condense it into a linear story while still being meandering. Because they make a joke about side quests pretty early on, where they're like, yeah, you can't ever walk the wastes without being sidetracked. Like, it's great. Let's jump into some of your thoughts in more detail, because I'm curious what you want to open with.
So I'll start with the positive, right? Which is that I really enjoyed how each of the three main characters that are in the show represent what I think are the three different ways of playing the game, which I thought was very interesting. And I would not be surprised to find out that this was how their stories were originally created. So you have Lucy, who is the permanent Paragon player. Mm-hmm. You've got Coop, who is the permanent Renegade. And then you have Maximus, who is the typical player. He has no loyalty to anything and
Yep.
is just always choosing the best short-term solution without any regards for anything else.
He did exactly what we did in Fallout 3 and New Vegas, where we joined the Brotherhood just to get power armor training.
And then he's like, all right, I'm leaving. See ya.
Yeah.
Dude, there was also a theory that I read, again, not my theory, don't grill me for it, but there were that each of them represent a different 3D Fallout game. So it's like Coop is New Vegas, I think. Lucy is Fallout 3, and then Maximus is Fallout 4 because he gets the power armor right away and then has to ditch it.
I mean, you could see like some parallels there.
Yeah.
I really do think that what happened is they sat down and they were like, so we should make
Yeah.
these the player's story, right? The player's journey through these worlds. And we have the people who always choose good all the time. We have people who choose evil all the time. And then we have our average player. And I think it's really interesting how that came along because like Lucy is sort of perpetually positive, even to her own detriment, right? And then Coop is perpetually negative, even to his own detriment. And then, of course, Maximus is just purely self-serving until he gains, some sort of an attachment to one of the NPCs.
A companion.
In the world. Right, to a companion. And outside of that, right, they really do, if you look at it through that lens, they kind of almost always choose the Renegade or Paragon option, again, with the sole exception being Maximus.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
I like that.
I really enjoyed that. I looked at it less even like Renegade Paragon. I always looked at it as like good karma, bad karma.
Right, yeah.
Which is interesting because Maximus is also mostly bad karma. So that's where I thought it was interesting because my takeaway was that Lucy was always the good karma choice. Maximus was usually the bad karma choice. And although Coop was picking bad karma options, he was doing it as he reminded me like you said, of New Vegas in a lot of ways, because he's playing the neutral option a lot of the time. Like he's playing like, I will piss everybody off to get my way. Like he shows up to not Megaton and shoots everybody to find the one person he's after and has no remorse. It was just not Megaton. That's what that
no, they said Philly was based on Megaton.
Yeah. Which is fine. Yeah. That's a great visual to have. But I thought that it was really well done in that regard. And it, especially when you look at Coop as the antagonist throughout most of the show, and then they flip it on its head near the end and they're like, oh no, he's been right this entire time. And they set up that paradigm shift of, okay, now Maximus is leading the Brotherhood potentially. So that's going to be really interesting in season 2 because they're going to do the they're at odds with each other thing with him and Lucy. Which will be fascinating to see. And I thought it was a really, really well done shift when it happens.
So I actually ended up also writing the differences between the three characters. I thought that they were like different hours of playtime. Like Lucy being like brand new to the game, Maximus being like 40 to 60 hours in, and then Coop being like, new 100 plus hours. Yeah, new game plus basically.
I was listening to a video from the original Fallout creator, Tim Kaine. He does like a video series where like just a bunch of vlogs recently where he just talks about his time working on the games. And that like he was invited to the premiere. He ended up watching the show, really loving it. And he said that like he had no stake in this, but the way that he saw it was like every character is like the next playthrough. You start out your first playthrough as Lucy, then Maximus, and then describing playing as Cooper Howard. Just remembered his last name's Howard. That's funny. Playing as him as being the murder hobo playthrough.
Yeah,
I like that.
That tracks.
I like that. I also like that we got a lot of insight into pre-war because you don't usually see active, lengthy amounts of pre-war stuff. You occasionally, like Fallout 4 had the bit before the war starts. Barely. Here we get a pretty consistent drip feed of it. And again, they do it in a way that it's very plot twisty how they lay it out, but I think they did enough to earn it.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
No, I agree.
No,
I actually really appreciate the fact that mostly the characters are taking actions and not being just purely acted upon. I think that the plot mostly moves forward because they are making it move forward. And I think that's very good, right? Like when we're talking about just enjoyable stories in general, that's one of the things that I'm looking for the most. So yeah, absolutely.
I will. I'll jump to a critique then, because this is the next thing that comes to mind immediately. I didn't take notes when I watched because I was just watching it to watch it before we had planned for this. And why is the Enclave here? Like, they don't acknowledge them after the start functionally. They really don't, and that's fine. Yeah. But they are wiped out in every game they exist in. So the Enclave is the remnants of the government, for your reference, Nico. That is the actual government of the U.S. In hiding in Fallout 1 and 2, and then in 2 you wipe them out. In 3, there's a different side of the Enclave on the East Coast because they fled to the East Coast, except you kill the robot president in 3, so he's gone, and they're gone again. In New Vegas, there are the remnants of the Enclave, which you normally also kill. They're just wearing power armor, so it doesn't matter. They're not really government. They're not in 4 at all, I don't think, unless I'm
It's just a bunch of veterans in New Vegas. Yeah, they're not in 4, but they are getting added as a new quest in the
in the update?
next gen update
Great.
that comes out tomorrow.
Great.
Which group was that in the show? I don't.
That was the German guy.
Evil scientist, man.
Yeah.
The defector scientist.
Okay.
It's just the plot impetus. It doesn't have a bearing otherwise. Outside of the weird aspect of him having, like, the secret that everyone's looking for is cold fusion, which is interesting. I don't know how I felt about that.
Oh,
it felt very MacGuffin-y.
It was
sure.
So I actually want to talk about this MacGuffin real quick. I'm sure, Em, you have a bunch of thoughts too, so I'll pass it to you after I get my brief thoughts out of the way. I don't like MacGuffin stories. I am sort of over MacGuffins, and I especially don't like when a MacGuffin in the first third of the story gets put into the hands of whoever's supposed to have it, quote unquote, ostensibly, and then is taken from them, and that's the whole rest of the plot of the season, and that's how it gets into anyone else's hands. I just am over that. And I didn't like that the show had that, but I think, because of the presentation and because of a lot of other parts of the writing, the characters especially, and just the faithfulness to the cool world, I was willing to overlook that. And what are your thoughts on the MacGuffin?
I mean, with this one in particular, I don't know, because power does show up in the Fallout series pretty recurringly as an issue. We had Helios 1, right? Like, that was a thing. And so, like, electricity is important, and they established that it's important, and the whole kind of setting of Fallout is this 1950s world where everything is electricalized, right? And so you need power for a lot of things. So I didn't really find it to be something that was unbelievable necessarily. In like, I could see in a Fallout game them being like, you need to go collect the cold fusion core, and okay. It's still a MacGuffin, right? And that never feels super good. But I didn't have a problem, and I don't have a problem with the idea of a MacGuffin.
I think my issue was mainly, like, I appreciated that they were acknowledging cold fusion as a thing that would be achievable in the Fallout universe, because the big split in Fallout's timeline is that they prioritize nuclear power, we prioritize the chip, and therefore. That's they have nuclear powered cars. They have really shitty computers, and that's just how that works. I liked that.
Technology never got smaller.
What threw me off was that somehow, like, I didn't. I'm sure they'll reveal this in season 2. I didn't really appreciate that the remnants of the government most recently had it, and they didn't necessarily explain how they got it from the lady who was kind of with the NCR. Is kind of what they were implying.
Yeah. I think that they were implying that she is the last of the NCR.
Yeah, and so I didn't fully grasp.
We're talking about Moldaver there, right?
Moldaver, yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't write names down. I didn't fully grasp that part of it, because I understood, like, okay, she was there in the pre-timeline. One of the plot twists, for those that haven't watched that or maybe trying to follow along, one of the plot twists is that they do the thing from Fallout 4 where they put everyone in 200-year stasis chambers, but they only did it for the rich people, and so a lot of the vault that Lucy comes out of, including her dad, are people that were responsible for the war in the first place, being the mega corporations.
Yeah.
And that's the brain blast moment I had, brother.
It actually brings me to, like, the beginning of my major criticisms of the show, which is, first of all, and I do have several. First of all, the threads that are left open, such as how is Moldaver still alive, or what role does Dane have in the Brotherhood of Steel? Because they're not a traditional, Brotherhood of Steel, or I guess Brother of Steel. They're unsatisfactorily dangled, right? Like we get the key jangles there, but it doesn't feel good, right? Like Coop's history and how he becomes a ghoul, which is one of the remaining questions that are left open, is certainly done better. But I think that's only because we get so much more time with him, right? Like the questions that we get, the questions that I have about the plot so far, they don't feel good to even ask. How is Moldaver still alive? I don't feel like they even addressed that. That should be a question that's being presented to me, right? I should be coming away from going, oh, you're right. How is Moldaver still alive? Because she was an enemy of Vault-Tec. There's no reason why she would be put in one of those pods, right? Like, but that question wasn't satisfactorily surfaced to me, right? And so instead, me coming across it and going, well, okay, but how is it? It feels more like a plot hole, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I don't think that any sort of things like that in these types of shows should feel like a plot hole. I shouldn't be sitting here going, okay, but wait, why is she still alive? Instead of being like, you're right, why is she still alive? And I think that that's a question for how they presented a lot of the things in this, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you one example of things that were presented in a way that felt unsatisfactory to me. And I'm not sure that you guys are going to agree, but Barb Howard, Coop's wife, did not earn the war never changes line, in my opinion.
Agree.
Yeah,
Agree.
She
that was
absolutely
just there
did
for the
not earn
twist.
that.
I'll give you that.
She didn't earn it. I
Yeah.
recognize
They should
that
have
it was
had
put
Ron
there.
Perlman.
I do
Why
have
don't they
a.
just cast Ron Perlman to say it?
I don't care if Ron
have a.
Perlman does it.
I do have a counterpoint to that, but I'll let you finish your thought first.
Okay, so I recognize that it was put there because we needed to have Coop have that moment of recalling this horrific betrayal.
Never mind, that was
had,
my whole point.
right? And I recognize that it would play a parallel to what he heard, but I think that his moment, which I think was very good, was robbed of its weight by having her say it first.
Yeah.
I would re-edit that moment entirely to have him say it first, looking out, war never changes, and then go back, right? Go back and show him hearing that from her, showing that reaction.
I'm a
right?
huge
Instead,
Godhead,
what we
so
got
I
was
agree.
this sort of, instead of it being this powerful moment of like realization that he's still, feeling that betrayal and that this is still a thing and that, war never does change, and the sort of depth of such a a common statement, because it really is just a very common thing that has all this sort of, weight lifted up into. Instead of that, it's just sort of lamely stuck in front of us like some sort of a deflated souffle so that she could say it first. And I don't think she earned it. And those are the kind of things, just like previously, right, that it just doesn't feel like,
I'll jump in and I'll say that I didn't think it was fully earned. I agree with you on that front. I will say, as maybe a devil's advocate thought, I think that I wouldn't want him to say it first because his character is defined by that betrayal, but the character we currently see is not necessarily the same person who was betrayed, if that makes sense to me or to you guys. So
they even have different names.
Yeah, so I almost feel like him saying it later is not necessarily a callback to, like, in his mind it is, but I don't know how to phrase this well because I'm putting myself on the spot here. I think having it as part of the big reveal moment was one of those things that I understood why they did it, and I did do the Wojak, point at the screen when they did it. It was like, oh, they got what they wanted out of that moment, and I think because he is so burned by having been betrayed there, and then also having 200 extra years to simmer on that, and making him a psychopath, hell-bent on this revenge now that he can find it, I think having it said twice works, and I think having him say it first would kind of imply that he's still redeemable to get back to that person that he was, that he's trying to, like, achieve, when really he just wants his daughter, wants to find out what happened to her, and he wants to make everyone else pay, including his wife.
Agree strongly.
So, in other words, I agree, and also I don't like how quickly that came about, but
It did come up really quick.
But
Yeah.
there was
Yeah.
the prior episode of him having the little earpiece where he's like questioning, do I want to breach this trust? And so they start giving you a little bit. There could have been more, is I guess where I would say. They could have earned it more.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
I
feel like
agree with
she
that.
didn't earn it at all. Like
So-
there was none.
So my devil's advocate on it. First of all, I do agree she didn't earn it. And also I think it would have been cool as hell just to have Coop say it and just leave it at that. That said, my devil's advocate on it is that it recontextualizes the phrase. And it recontextualizes the phrase in this new story. So again, I'm thinking of it like maybe too self-contained, right? But from the lens of a new person, knowing that that's a phrase that had been said, and now it's flipped on its head to mean war never changes, therefore we Vault-Tec need to protect our monopoly by...
On war.
Yeah, exactly. Right? And it sort of makes it so that it's less about war not changing, which is true, and more about capitalism bad. And I just think I do think they should have done more to get to it. So I agree with you in that regard.
I guess to throw my thought on there, was just with how they framed the whole thing of, this shouldn't I spy on my wife thing for what these other people, Moldava, are clearly saying is like, hey, she's doing some fucked up shit behind the scenes. You don't know your wife at all. That for him to follow her into this huge meeting of his and to put that earpiece in suddenly, there is going to be that tonal whiplash that I think, it does feel like it wasn't earned for her. It could have probably been set up better narratively, but I think just within the context of the scene, I was fine with it. I didn't really have an issue.
It's also tough to put more time into earning it because then you reveal it. And I think they do a good job of making her seem like a normal, well-adjusted human being up until that moment. So I think it did need to be jarring as well. It's tough.
Yeah, I agree. That's how
And
I see
especially
it.
if you're seeing it through Coop's lens, because he clearly didn't know that about her until that point.
And he wants to not believe it until he has to hear it. So that being the phrase that is said, I think it probably needed to be said there at the end of the day. And I think just for the extra impact of that, like, yes, we have the pointing at screen moment. They said the thing. And also, I don't know that there's another way to say it better when you didn't say it at the start of the show. Because every other time it's ever said, it is at the start of the game and at the end of the game. And I think for it to be said both at the end of the season and also well before that in that big reveal, or relatively before that, there's a lot of discussion to be had on that. And I think that there's no right or wrong answer. I think we're all kind of hitting on pretty good points here. We all kind of still agree. So.
Right. When it comes down to it, it is what it is. I just think that it could have been edited in a different way to where that impact could have been better. Because instead of feeling like it was this kind of hit moment, for me, it was just like,
No, that's very true. They clearly were building, like, it was a very, very, very clear build up to it.
And if and to be fair, if they had him say at the start of the season, "War never changes," and then they did it later, it wouldn't have taken away from it either. So like that's the other side of it. Is if they had dropped that,
I was very surprised that it didn't happen in episode 1.
Yeah, me too.
So surprised.
Yeah.
So
I did like that the context was different though. Sorry, I'll let you go in a second, Nico. I like, whenever the line is said, "The war never changes," it's always very somber, reminiscent of like, where did we go wrong kind of feeling, but like you could tell in his voice we know where we went wrong. But this idea of like flipping it as the bad guys trying to justify their actions, I think was a neat little way to flip it.
So I guess I'm sorry, Nico. I'm sorry. You keep getting stepped on. I'm so sorry.
I was going to bounce off of something Trav said earlier, which I also want to know your thoughts on Moldava, because I didn't love the way they presented her as a good guy at the end of it,
That's
after
Fallout.
she commanded the army of ferals to go in and attack the vault.
So I'll give you my takeaway on that. We are told that they are raiders at the start of the season. The takeaway I had was those are people from the other two vaults.
Yeah.
Like the control of the triumvirate vault.
And that's why they know about it.
Yeah.
When like he's questioned about it in prison.
And I think that if you go back and watch that first part of the episode, I think with that context, it makes it interesting because it means that people from Vault 32 or 31 are being cast out of the vaults and they're becoming raiders, which is more impactful than them just being random people, because those are the people that were sent out of that vault or other vaults that had to go to Shady Sands, and then Shady Sands gets bombed solely because Moldaver gives Lucy's mom the realization. And
So it's my
I don't
understanding.
think that's accurate at all.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the folks in Vault 32. Well, first of all, Vault 31 is not a real vault. That's all. That's just the brain in the jar, buds.
well, yeah.
Those guys. Second, the folks in Vault 32, I do believe, killed themselves for the most part because
They
they
ate
found out
themselves.
about the experiment, and then they killed the overseer. And so that was why
I don't know if they
were
found
all-
out about the experiment. I think that they were just purposely limited on resources and were driven to killing each other.
Yeah.
There's a wall that says something about management in blood, so I assumed that they.
Well, because the
figured it
management
out.
of vaults.
Oh, that's right,
The
yeah,
management
I
of both
forgot about
vaults
that.
are the management from like those are the people being frozen
yeah.
in Vault 31. Yeah.
Exactly, which is why I said I think they figured it out.
Okay,
and wrote
yeah, I think you're right,
Something
though.
about management in the walls. Anyway, I digress. Moldaver sent the group of what'd you Raiders
Raiders.
Yeah,
into the
Raiders.
vault, and then they presented her as a good guy at the end, and I was like,
That's
kinda a
Fallout.
weird
That's how
tone to
Fallout
show.
always is.
Yeah.
There are no good guys in Fallout.
Yeah, like that's the point
Okay.
of war never changes.
I see.
Yeah, I might be recollecting what I was putting together to be the case before they did the reveal of Vault 31, but I do believe Moldaver's people are from Shady Sands, which got bombed into them having to go into a vault.
That was my interpretation.
So
as well.
I'm getting my wires crossed there because it's been, when did the show come out? 2 weeks ago.
it's all good.
Yeah, but I liked that perspective of it gives you a chance to go back and recognize, oh, those aren't just objectively bad people. I mean, they are, but they have a purpose for why they're upset against the Vault's overseer specifically, because they know that he's the one that bombed their town, you know?
Yeah,
And I think that was an interesting thing. Now, Shady Sands is going to be the most controversial takeaway of the Fallout show. Em, I'll jump to you because I'm curious your thoughts on it first.
So when I have my I don't know, list of complaints, yeah, there are a few moments that the timeline, or rather, there are a few moments that the timeline is clearly stated, right? And yeah, there are some canonical issues between the games and the show. I think a lot of it is addressed, and let me go through this for just a second. I think that a lot of this is addressed by the fact that none of these people are reliable, right?
Mhm.
None of them were necessarily there. And I think that you could pretty easily convince me that Vault 4 had the wrong timeline by a few years. I don't think that would be some huge error.
Yeah.
I also think that when we're saying that, oh, in one line in New Vegas, someone asks how Shady Sands is, and the guy says, oh, they're fine. That's not some bastion of truth and reality
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
Right? Like I don't really mind these sort of small problems. And like I said, there's very few moments in the show where the timeline is clearly stated, even in the game, right? Like outside of some very specific things, there's not a whole lot of
Every game
here's-
retcons one of the prior ones. Every
Right.
single one.
Yeah.
I think that in the show alone, right? Like a lot of people are either confused or they forgot that Coop was working birthday parties at the beginning of the show. It's not like he's going to be murdered and turned into a ghoul immediately after finding out his wife was doing this stuff, right? Like the end of the show is the very first episode, or the end of his story as Coop Howard is the very first episode where the nuke is going off. You know, and that's
Which was a
because he
great scene, by the
refused.
way.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
super
really,
good.
really
But
well
that-
done.
That's because he refused to do the thumbs up anymore, right? Because he left his wife and took their daughter after, maybe potentially years after eavesdropping on her meeting. So, like, the timelines aren't really a thing that's happening in there. And we don't really get, like, firm timelines, with the exception, of course, of this whiteboard that everybody threw a hissy fit over.
It was really funny because I watched this, like, I happened to wake up early the day that this dropped, and I was like, oh, it's out 2 days early, apparently, whatever. And I watched it, and I got through it right around the time that you had said, hey, do we want to do a thing about it because it's out? And so I was like, okay, wait, 2277, Shady Sands. The way that I saw it, and for those that haven't seen the show, there's a whiteboard that shows the history of Shady Sands and the vault specifically. And it says 2277, the fall of Shady Sands, and then there's an arrow on this big whiteboard with a bunch of arrows showing passage of time, and there's a bomb. And so immediately I was like, oh, okay, so it got taken over at some point and then bombed down the road. I didn't see that as the year it got bombed, because when it got bombed, most of the people would be dead, so they wouldn't know exactly when, unless they were outside of blast range,
Right. And to be clear, specifically for Nico, maybe, right? The game New Vegas takes place in like
81,
81 or whatever. So having the bomb go off 4 years before that is a quote plot hole. But I will tell you, regarding the nuke, I want to say that the downfall of the NCR date in 2277, guess what? It actually perfectly lines up with something that isn't the nuke. The Battle of Hoover Dam that kicks off New Vegas happened in 2277.
And that's why that was the first thing I thought of when this came up, was I saw that and I'm like, oh, they're talking about the start of that war because they lost the first Battle of Hoover Dam. The president got shot around then. The second president, who was the president's kid, I believe. And you can also then shoot the third president during the
NCR. This happened in 2277.
Yeah, it happened then. So obviously the fall of Shady Sands would be when they start getting spread thin. And also when they say Shady Sands is the first capital of the NCR, that's an interesting one, because that means that there was a later capital, because this wasn't the prime location for it. Because you wouldn't put that billboard up after the city was glassed, like that was already there. It's just an interesting thing, and I really liked them taking that big leap, because the NCR is always put together as like the token good guy in people's eyes, and they're not. They are the problem.
Bureaucracy.
They are part of
They had to cut out a lot of the morally gray quests. I found out about this recently. Like, there were going to be quests for the NCR in New Vegas where it's like, hey, these homeless people are taking our water. Can you go kill them for us?
Yeah, like they became the token neutral guys because Caesar's Legion was rushed mainly.
Yeah.
And
Kaiser.
Kaiser. And what has me interested?
Such a great story.
What has me interested is they didn't touch on the Legion at all. So obviously they would have been wiped out either way.
Season 2.
They would have been wiped out either way, honestly. They will touch on them in season 2 because season 2 is going to Vegas. But I liked the NCR being wiped out because it made people mad, and that made me laugh because they were like, it's Todd Howard ruining the old games, and that's always fun.
They clearly didn't finish the show. I love that. Just the amount of people that were like, hey, New Vegas truthers, how are we feeling now? I was like, well, after everyone had time to finish the show.
And when you go and look at that post-credits where they show Lucy's dad going into New Vegas's ruins, there are NCR vertibirds there. That's probably the last bastion of the NCR post-New Vegas now. Like, it might mean that there's a canon ending to New Vegas, but honestly, I don't think there will be. I think it's whatever happens, someone fucking nukes the city and the NCR moves in. Or the NCR just takes it by force because they have to go somewhere. And I think that's fascinating. Sorry, go ahead.
With Shady Sands, right? Like, I think the big issue is that people really, really like it, right? Like, they like it because it's been there forever. They like it because it's the first city you get to in Fallout 2. They like it because you deal with
Fallout
NCR.
1.
And Fallout 1.
They move it in Fallout 1. Like, it's a different spot from 2.
Like the fact is that people really like Shady Sands because they've got, a sort of experience there. It's nostalgic for them. But your experience with the NCR in Fallout 2 specifically, where you're actually in Shady Sands for a significant period of time, it sucks. They suck. They're terrible.
It's a lot of
racists and bigots and awful, and they don't care. And I mean, if you have a sixth toe, you get kicked out again.
A lot of rose-tinted glasses on Shady Sands, which is why I liked it getting taken out, because it means something. They like that's what makes it important. If it was just a town that was made up for the show, it's not an important thing. But because that means that Maximus is from Shady Sands, and that he had his entire family wiped out because of it, and the Brotherhood showed up because they're the only bastion left of a faction that exists now in the West Coast, ostensibly. Like, again, the Enclave stuff is still weird because how are they still around? But honestly, I think that was just a reason for them to have dog meat more than anything else. I think that was really it.
I will say I think that it makes a little bit of sense for them to have had a facility that maybe a bunch of people just happened to be at
some point,
when their oil rig got nuked in Fallout 2. Like, it makes sense for there to be a small group, and maybe it is that small that they haven't really been able to do anything noteworthy for the last
20 years.
Decades.
Yeah, it would have been fine if it was like a rundown center, but it was so high tech.
It did not look rundown,
and it was still like there was security and everything. Like, that's where I was like, okay,
you see a super mutant on a gurney somewhere. Like, they're still doing shit.
Oh, just wait when they get to the super mutants in season 2.
I'm very excited for super mutants.
Yeah,
very very.
They did such a good job with all the.
They're the ones that took over
effects.
New Vegas.
And all the special effects. They did such a good job with all of that I'm really curious what they will do, because they're going to have a budget for season 2. Like, this did well. So they're going to make Super Mutants look hopefully pretty good.
Yeah. And I mean, and I'm a GOG head, so I'm glad that he's coming back. You know.
Oh, he was brilliant.
He was
Walter Goggins was brilliant.
Yeah.
Speaking of dog meat, right? There's some issues I have with the plot. They're mostly nitpicky, but I feel like it's worth it to at least mention them.
Yeah.
I know that some people have some issues with something like dog meat flipping his loyalty suddenly to the ghoul. I think that was shorthand, right? I don't think that we really needed to see an hour long of him being angry and then getting beef first.
Yeah. Well, and also you literally like the dog meat watches Lucy cut off her owner's head. You know, so she's already traumatized. She knows that he's dead, and she's following the head, not the guy. So what does it matter?
A lot of people were very annoyed that Maximus left behind his weapons bag and the gun from.
He's an idiot.
Titus. That's okay. So here's the thing, right?
That's really funny.
Okay, that's where I'm going with it. I noticed these things. Of course, I was like, "Why didn't you take the gun?" Right? But after meeting Maximus a little bit more, I realized that actually felt pretty natural for me for his character, because Maximus is an actual moron.
Yeah.
He's such a
like people said a one intelligence build.
People said he had the idiot savant perk.
Yeah.
He's just so lucky, you know. I have no problems with those little issues. I will tell you, like plot armor, for example, right? There's some serious plot armor for everyone, which you know, it always sucks to like look at it and go, oh well, you should be dead but you're not. Why does the ghoul not die to bullets but every other ghoul seems to die to a single shot? That kind of stuff. It's fine, but I will tell you that there's one thing that's really kind of sticking at me, and it's such a problem.
Is it the foot grow back juice?
No, like I'm fine with all that kind of stuff, honestly, right? Like
I have thoughts on that.
The little things are fine. The worst thing for me is Vault-Tec ruining the world for capitalism, because it just doesn't make sense to me. If their argument had been slightly more nuanced, the fact that it's just this, we're going to blow up the world so we can be rich again. It's like, I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense to me. It feels like
certainly ham-fist.
It being in a meeting with Robco and House Industries is what throws me off. That's what got me more than anything, is they're straight up saying, okay, like if it was the perspective of we know a war is coming, therefore we just should be the ones to profit on it, that's one thing.
And survive.
But they're
take
saying
over the world.
They're saying we're gonna nuke the world so that we can rebuild it. Like, that's a little weird, because House is right there. So given he now knows when the nukes are gonna fall, so it kind of explains New Vegas a little bit better. It's not just him being a super genius.
How he was able to shoot them down.
Yeah.
So actually, I've heard a good theory talking about it. If this is the case, then they really should have explained this better. Though, I guess before I say this, do you guys have any more thoughts you wanted to say about that whole plot point of Vault-Tec?
I don't feel that they explained it to me, and I feel that for me, watching this going, okay, then they're just cartoonishly evil, and I never like it when a villain is cartoonishly evil, where they're just like, and then we'll be richer.
To be fair, that is very Vault-Tec anyway. Like,
sure,
going back to the games.
I agree, but
I agree.
Could have been more nuanced at least.
Yeah.
First of all, I agree. I do think that, but second of all, to play, I guess it's not devil's advocate because I agree with you, and everything I'm gonna say, indicates that I agree with you.
I work for a corporation, so this is what would happen.
It's that's that too, honestly. Okay, yes, that, but more, I think, perhaps more presciently, they like, it's like junk food, right? It's like candy. It's not good for you, but like, I just like
war
reveals.
is pretty bad for you.
Sorry, I like
misunderstood.
reveals like that where it's just like, oh man, brain blast moment. Like, wow, wouldn't it be wild if that were true? And then we get it, and then I think the difference between that and a good, perhaps more nuanced reasoning would be that it would just last a lot longer. I feel like the effect from it on me emotionally was just minimal to negligent.
I feel like it would have been better if they had done it in such a way that they say, okay, the world's going to end, so we're going to be the ones that are funding it. And then in the present day, post-war, you see Lucy's dad saying, well, we're the management. We're the ones that can fix this. Like, I've lived through this for the last X amount of years. So now I know that we, as middle managers, can rule the world.
Yes.
And also, they could still be responsible for that second bomb drop in 2270 or after 2277, whatever. When
I mean, the fact that the fact that he fucking bombed it because his wife was like, because his wife left him. Like, they are psychopaths.
Yeah,
like,
you can keep,
and I'm totally fine
that.
with it. Yeah, absolutely. If they had just done a little bit more to make it not just so, again, cartoonishly evil, where it doesn't make any sort of logical sense that these people are trying to get money by blowing up the world. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah, I really do hope that they kind of go into that a little bit more, and I think they have to with House being there. What a cameo to throw at you in that room.
In that, like, it's such a weird room. Like, why is Robco there? Like, they implied that Vault-Tec owns Robco secretly. Was that a thing that they kind of implied there?
They had
or at least they're like part of something.
Yeah,
it's incestuous in some way.
I did like that. I really enjoyed that. What was his name? Billy, the really annoying guy that kept trying to talk to Walter Goggins. Bud. I like that he was the brain in a jar. I popped huge for both parts of that.
Yeah. Oh, dude, brain and the subtitles say brain on a Roomba.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which actually
it was a nice little callback to the Robo Brains.
Yeah. That led me to the question of, does Roomba own the trademark for Roomba, or has it become a generified term?
That was a script. They probably made a mistake in the script and didn't change it from Roomba, honestly.
Right.
They probably just took the actual screenplay.
Time to take action.
And put it there, and no one thought about it.
Yeah.
So I'll give you my one last thing.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to just kind of meander too long. So obviously there were some insane moments, right? Like, I'll give you one. When the turret opened fire on Coop and his daughter outside of the house and then missed them from a few feet away. Right?
Yeah.
And I can see why people would look at that and go, oh, that looks really dumb. And I don't know anyone who didn't comment on it. Yeah. However, I think that was a nod to the 99% hit XCOM thing. And if it was, if it wasn't, then it's just dumb. But if it was, then it's actually really kind of endearing.
I saw it as a high luck stat sort of thing. Like,
Yeah, I think that's really good.
You have to be lucky to make it that far in the war to be able to.
True.
Because he was also at Anchorage, so he was already high level.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Perfect. He'd already.
So
what was the big robot that they had at Anchorage?
Liberty Prime.
Liberty Prime. Yeah, so he would have been there.
Yeah.
Nico, you're gonna love Liberty Prime.
Yes. Oh, incredible, dude! Yeah.
Imagine if Optimus Prime was a commie-crushing U.S. robot.
Yeah,
and also
Helldivers.
Yeah,
man.
Like, he's literally the giant robot that lobs nukes like footballs and will yell shit like better dead than to be a red I'm forgetting the word, communist or something like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. It's really good.
That's awesome.
I will give you, though, the thing that didn't work for me And I feel like this was another attempt to do a nod to the game, sort of like that. And I feel like it fell really flat, and it felt so awkward to me, which is the Lucy Maximus sex scene.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
dude.
Okay. Which
Yeah.
for anybody who's not quite sure what I mean, but there is no sex scene. But at one point, Lucy does
At
say,
least between
"Hey, do you want to have sex?" And he goes, "What? Like with my cock? You want to make my cock explode?" And it's very awkward.
Yeah.
To the point that I thought that they were either dreaming or being drugged.
Yeah. I think it made sense. I mean, you saw how she talked to her like forced arranged marriage partner, where he's like, "Well, what's your sperm count?" And was very
Yeah.
eager to fuck that dude. And then Maximus also being, raised by religious zealots and told never to sex. I think the
But
scene
that
made
part,
sense.
that part's a little out there because we know Brotherhood people fuck. Like that's what threw me off. I
Yeah.
like that they kind of turned the Brotherhood back into a religious culty type vibe.
Yeah.
And maybe something has changed in the last 15 years of West Coast Fallout story we don't know about, but I don't think they're raising kids to not know about the way the world works. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
no, that felt. A
I
little
totally
off.
accept. Like I've just
If he was
more
raised like in
accepting
Little
of it.
Lamplight, that's different, because then he wouldn't know.
yeah.
Right.
Hopefully.
Wow.
I had taken that to be like, they failed their social roles essentially. Like that was
Yeah, I mean, he
the
is a
way that
fucking
I am-
idiot, so like there is that, like that does
Yeah,
help.
he got a 1 on his speech thing, but it felt
Yeah.
so awkward and so
thought-
I don't know, out of
I thought she got the
character.
1. I thought she rolled
See,
the 1.
I thought
on
it.
her
I thought it
speech.
was deliberately, and
Yeah.
like from my view, I thought it was like charmingly awkward.
It was
From what I knew of the characters.
a little bit, but it throws me off because in the vaults you would have a pre-war perception of life, and that means that you were talking like standard 1950s social roles or social standards rather, not roles. So you would expect more of a housewifey type prudish mentality to come out of the female characters in post-war Fallout, given she's now been in the apocalypse. But like that, there's like that element is like that vault is brought up in a very pre-war way. And so
I mean, clearly she's sexual because she talked about how she has, relationship with her cousin, and then
Yeah.
of course she does in fact sleep with this guy after.
yeah,
being
that's
married
more
to
of
him.
that's more me commenting on like they kind of went against Fallout a little bit in that regard because given the vaults,
Yeah.
it's 200 years later, but
just-
it's weird. It's a weird disconnect.
I would not be surprised to find out that particular scene, right? Because it felt so very different from everything. I would not be surprised to find out that was written by somebody else entirely.
By
right?
Todd
Like-
Howard himself.
Like this scene was just one thing that was written by the showrunner's daughter or something like that, right? And it gets thrown in. It felt so different from everything else that I legitimately I was like, so is this a dream? Are they drugged?
Mhm.
Especially when you're seeing them in a room that says testing or whatever it was,
Yeah.
like
it was a little
Yeah.
fan
felt
fiction-y.
so strange.
Well,
to me.
it's that it's so far because that's like 6 episodes in, and we don't see anything from Lucy that is that way after the first 20 minutes of episode 1. That's what
Right,
got
and
me.
we never
Well,
see it again.
the way that I saw it was that she's back at this vault, very excited to be here, and she's falling back into
That's
that
fair.
comfortable.
True homie. Yeah.
mindset.
That would be
That's how I.
If
that's
it
how I
wasn't in
immediately
the
saw it.
testing room, that would be different. But they also don't really say at that point yet that it's a vault. Like,
Yeah.
like it's them having fallen down. If
It
I'm
was
remembering,
just
No, they were looked at by
yeah,
the people, and
they
and
needed
were
to be
okay.
quarantined for a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
They were looked at by that point.
okay, but I feel like it would have been better for them to be quarantined in a room, for her to be back in that style first. Like instead of being in a hallway.
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
Like-
in like not the just gurney room.
Like
yeah.
we should, because that gets Maximus more comfortable with being in the Fallout style room where he's eating the
Caviar.
caviar. Thank you. I was gonna say calamari for some reason.
oysters.
Caviar. Yeah, oysters. Because he was like, "Oh, oysters make me feel funny," and then he asked her to have sex.
And I feel like if that had been in the same room
You want to make my cock explode?
in the earlier scene, that would have hit a little bit different because then we get to see him get a little bit of that comfort as he's still
Yeah,
on
I agree.
edge. but it's in the same, like it's like the framing of that is what I'm saying.
I like that. I like that.
It's not so much the action. I don't have a problem with her asking him to have sex.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with him not understanding it. It was just very awkward, and I blame this on that particular, scene's dialogue.
Mhm.
Whoever wrote that dialogue, it feels super awkward.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That one scene stuck with me in like this sort of, wow, that was bad, right?
Yeah.
Like I came away from it just feeling like, oh, that was a bad moment. It felt really bad.
I don't think I got it that bad.
It stood out because, again, like that makes Maximus out to be such a fucking idiot that he didn't absorb any training from the Brotherhood at all in the last 10 years or 15 years. And that's what starts to get me like, okay, that plus where it takes place, plus we haven't seen Lucy be sexual since episode 1.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a bunch of things that add up to make that a little weird.
I have some questions.
Yeah.
If you guys wouldn't mind perhaps answering them, if
It's
you know the
rapid
answers.
fire question time with all hail buckets.
Not too many.
Single
not too
word
many,
answers.
But God, well, okay. If you guys know anything about how the ghouls work in lore,
Nope.
They changed it a bunch. Like this is very different, and it's probably for the best.
Them regenerating like that is new to the show, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, so I was going to ask about that. Did you guys interpret it the same way I did, where it's like they lose their nose because presumably he got in a scuffle?
No, all ghouls lose
or
their
an
nose.
injury that
ghouls,
would have like
It's cartilage,
lost
so
Their
they-
nose rots off.
Yeah.
All their
Okay.
cartilage.
I see. So it's not like the regeneration thing.
Well, so let me jump
not
in.
related to.
Let me jump in because the regeneration thing that's happening to ghouls is an interesting one because to me that means that they have the FEV and they're actually super mutants. They're not ghouls.
That's what I was going to say. I think that little jar that they had the fuckboy Huff to grow his foot back, I want to say that was FEV.
Yeah.
When before it's been implied that ghouls are radiation, not FEV. FEV turns them into super mutants.
Mm-hmm.
But like it's really blurry in between. Games have never been really
They've
super
changed it
consistent.
a bunch over time.
Yeah.
So
I think it's FEV.
FEV is like the
well-
the fast evolution.
yeah, especially
virus
with
or
that guy
whatever.
with the weird foot, that he is a super mutant next season. 100% or
You
they
think
fucked
so?
up. 100% or they fucked up.
Yeah.
There's no
I mean,
question.
that'd be cool. I like that.
Like he's probably going to lead the super mutant army or some shit. That's going to be how that goes.
He's
I
going to
didn't
end up
expect
becoming
to
like a
like him, by
Nightkin or
the
some
way.
shit.
Yeah, he came out pretty well.
He came out well.
There's a lot of characters that I did not expect to like, and then I ended up really enjoying their stories.
I like the
Yeah,
random
I
side
agree.
quest, like the old guy who was like, "You want to be my wife? I need a kid."
Oh, yeah.
Like that was great introduction to NPCs in Fallout.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
I liked that.
I like
sorry,
the new
I have
creature, the gecko. I like the
the
gecko.
gecko. Oh, is that new?
the
I assume
gulper?
that was in the
Gulper,
game.
yeah.
Gulper.
Was he? Because he was.
Yeah,
in
Gulpers are from Fallout 4.
Oh, they
Thingies?
they are in 4. Are they?
Yeah, they're from the Far Harbor DLC.
That's right. Never
They're
mind.
very recent.
I barely
creature.
played Far Harbor. You're right. Fallout 4 sucks. So
I like the revelation that they, at least the ones in the show, are implied to be formerly human test experiments.
yeah,
Or
that
at
was
least born
that was an
born
interesting
from
vault.
people.
That was an interesting
Yeah.
vault thing.
Yeah, that was weird as shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh right,
super
so I
weird.
want to get this thought out here before we wrap up. So
I have
the
one
whole
more
thing with that's fine. I'll never let you answer it. That's okay.
Good.
No. So the thing about Vault-Tec dropping the nukes, I saw someone bring up a good point to imply that it was just an idea that they brought up in the meeting and that they didn't actually drop the first nukes. And there were like breadcrumbs to sort of lead up to this plot point that just for some reason they never implied. Like Cooper's wife, important Vault-Tec member. Why was she outside when China dropped the nukes? Because the implication, I rewatched the scene, they never said that they were going to drop the nukes on themselves. They were just they were okay with instigating China to drop the nukes, to make them, or nondescript enemy combatants,
Yeah.
drop the nukes.
It was China in the lore.
Yeah, it was.
Well, they're going to take that out of the Amazon thing for sure now, because now,
You
now
think
that
so?
people
Or at least
now that
keep
people
it
know
vague,
about that,
yeah.
that's going to be taken out because they won't air the show in China otherwise.
LOL.
So there's a lot of things like, why, I think I already said it, Cooper's wife, important person, why was she out there? And then there's other things like one of the guys that was on the board I didn't know this at first, but apparently, like, he was the guy that made in New Vegas the Sierra Madre Casino, which, as we know, was being built in the process of being built and to be opened.
Right when the bombs dropped.
The day when the bombs dropped. Like, you know, if he knew when the bombs were going to be dropped, you know, he wouldn't have done that. And so I think that the implication, again, is just incompetency. But they didn't sell that well. I'm okay with that explanation, but I think that to be okay with it, I'm giving them a little bit of a leeway to hope that they explain that better in season 2. Because if they don't end up explaining this, I'm going to be looking back on this plot point a way more negative.
And there's
a little bit of hope.
There's a lot we didn't hit on regarding like the Vault 31 and 33 stuff. That's a whole sub thread throughout the whole show that I really enjoyed because it gave you that experience of exploring a creepy vault, which is a core Fallout thing.
They did such a good job.
There's an interesting aspect because what happened? Like there are still more people in stasis there. So what?
There was a ton of
presumably Coop's wife is there.
That's what I think.
And my interpretation of like the direction is that they're gonna go get Coop's wife and they're gonna find Moises Arias there.
I've actually long had my conspiracy theory is that Betty is his daughter.
Who's Betty?
Wow,
the older overseer of Fallout of the Vault 33.
You think so? Well, Betty was
Betty was in the scene. Betty was in the scene with
Bud,
Lucy's dad. Yeah, she was the assistant.
Not Bud. Yeah, she was Bud's assistant. Giving
with the guy who's Lucy's dad in the flashback.
Hank.
He was the kid who wants the autograph.
Yeah, Hank. Yeah, she was his assistant in the flashback. Otherwise, I'd be like, oh, that's a really cool plot point, but I don't think that'll happen.
That would have been super cool.
That's a cool idea, though. I like that.
But I do think Coop's wife is in the stasis, and I think that's where they're gonna find. Moises Arias is the brother. Trav, I don't know his character's name. Norm.
Oh, dude, I forgot to mention them. I was gonna mention it earlier, but I didn't want to interrupt the flow as much as I am right now because we've been going for a while, and I'm like, I need to get these thoughts out there. So no, I was gonna say that was the character that I was, that whole plot point I was not expecting to be that invested in. I loved that whole plot point.
Yeah.
Really well.
And then I don't know, mainly Kevin, maybe M, you might know this. Really, just fuck you, Nico. When Norm shows up to the Vault 31 doors and they let him in. Maybe I was just overexcited. I really thought that he was going to be met by a dude in Enclave power armor.
It did feel
like bring that Enclave.
I could have seen that.
Full circle.
I could have seen that. It would have been really. It would have explained them. It would have
made.
It would have been very shark jumpy.
Yeah.
But
dude.
Yeah.
Wow,
what we got was done way better.
Yeah, Brain in a Jar was one of my favorite moments because I didn't think that they were going to go there with Fallout. The show.
Yeah. Wow.
Do you think we're going to get Protectrons in season 2?
With the budget, maybe. Yeah.
Probably.
I think that was probably a budget.
Do you think we're going to get the fisting robot? Okay, I'm done.
Oh, if Fisto doesn't make an appearance in season 2, I'm done. I'm not watching the show.
Yeah, Nico, there's a robot in New Vegas. I don't even think it's part of a side quest. I think you just find it where you wake him up and it's like, please assume the position, and his name is Fisto.
Yeah, and
I don't know. I played my New Vegas playthrough as a woman, which does change how.
Oh, it can happen.
Go.
It can happen to a man.
Okay, I was gonna say I don't know if it happens if you pick a male character because non-binary people didn't exist back then. That's a joke.
Right.
That's a joke. But like there, I played as a woman and I interact with them. You go like, okay, sure, let's do it. The screen fades black for like a couple seconds,
and you wake noises.
up, and it's just completely implied. You got fucked by this robot.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I think you're gonna love New Vegas, Nico. No.
Yeah, I think I might like that game, fellas. Okay, so this is not really a question, I guess, but it is something that like I thought about. So at the very beginning of the show, Coop is fighting Maximus. And Maximus is in the power armor.
Oh yeah.
And Coop like has straight on like shots at him. And then at the end of the show, Coop knows about and has known about the flaw in the power armor that you can just shoot through the front. And he didn't do that to Maximus. And so my question is, do you guys think they'll address that?
Interesting.
Or
No.
will that just be left as a plot?
My presumption is that that's him being cocky early on, and when he's fighting 40 of them, he's like, well, I'm near my objective now.
Yeah.
Like, I know what I'm about to find, and that's important.
That was also my
Well,
interpretation.
the one that fucked me up as far as plot holy type things is Maximus letting Lucy's dad out of the thing, and she's so in shock that she doesn't say, hey, don't do that.
Oh yeah, that was
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
That bothered
yeah,
me.
which brings me to my actual question: why does the power armor have a voice changer? Like,
Because
Well,
it's
that's my-
sealed.
Yeah, it's a big ass, like, it's a gas mask too, so there's a
Right,
microphone
but
and speaker.
but it's not just, it's like lowered.
Yeah, but
like,
if
you
you
can hear it.
do you want the enemy to
that-
know exactly which person you are?
Yeah, that wasn't really a thing in the games. In 4, there was a little bit of voice modulation,
Yeah.
But it still was
But
like
also
the
it
same
was
voice.
it was
run
also
through a
just
filter.
for a joke. Like, that's also part of why.
Yeah.
It was
Okay.
important for
Okay.
the storyline for him to not be known as who he
Yeah,
is.
Right.
I think it's a new addition, but it worked for the
Yeah.
story they were wanting to tell.
I think it
And
makes
plus,
perfect
I could
sense,
totally
yeah.
believe it that this group of ultra religious brotherhood faction wanting to make themselves look scarier.
Well, it's not even. I'm talking
Totally
like the
lines
U.S. Army. Like, I'm talking
Yeah, yeah.
like in the U.S. Army. You don't want people to know which brotherhood or which person holding power armor that you are. Like, you're
Yeah.
supposed to be a faceless thing. Therefore, if your voices all sound the same, it's safer, because then you don't get tortured as hard or whatever. You get captured.
Yeah, I guess that
Yeah.
makes
Um,
perhaps a little bit of sense. Yeah,
Also, they just used Liberty Prime's voice anyway, so it's fine.
true.
But
Wow, wait.
Man.
do we have any other
I think-
last minute straggler thoughts we want to hit on before we call it a
Okay.
wrap?
Unless M has something, I have one.
Well, I will say that if you enjoy these kind of conversations, then you might enjoy being a part of them.
Yes,
For patrons, we have
yeah.
Book Crub, a monthly game club where we all play the same game and then we get together and talk about it with you, the patrons, all done live on our Discord. This month, we're playing Fallout 76, and you can join up and join in and get to know whether or not this game lives up to the show.
Love
and,
that.
and tell us why it doesn't.
yeah.
And why it doesn't.
Because it doesn't. I started it a little bit to getting ahead of Book Crub so that I can hopefully have enough to say for this month's discussion, because I'm excited to see what everyone in the Patreon crew thinks. This is a bit of on-air admin, because I didn't think to ask you, Em. Is that for the YouTube channel members and Twitch subs as well? Because I think they're in the room.
It sure is.
There
So
we
if you're
go.
anything, you can get in there, join the Book Crub. It's part of the Discord. It's open and available, and you can get in and be a part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Sick.
So look forward to that when it happens. Patreon.com/Crub for things like that, and all of our other bonus content for any of the tiers. So I should say any of the tiers. For $5 subscribers here on YouTube, if you hit the join button. For Twitch subs and for $5 patrons, you get every piece of video content that we've ever made, all of the bonus content. So Nico discussing different musical artists with each of us that he recommends to us, and vice versa. Our Mario parties, Trav and I have Overcrubbed starting very soon. By the time this goes out, that might already have dropped on the Patreon, where we're going through every single level in Overcooked and trying to 3-star them. We don't succeed, but it's been a lot of fun. And a bunch of other stuff that we really like to make, and we really like to share with everyone who's been part of the Crubscriber family. So patreon.com/Crub.
Trav, let's hear it.
Okay, so here's my idea to let us all play it out. And I am going to include Nico, even though he has no idea. All right, just a quick rapid fire thing. What do we all think will be the canon endings from New Vegas? Kevin, starting with you.
I don't think it's going to matter.
That's a good answer. I think they're going to have Mr. House be alive somehow, and that's the only consistency I could think of. Em, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely going to be. It doesn't matter. They're going to try and make it so that all of them could be canon. Right?
There were rumors of a Fallout New Vegas 2, not to cut you off, Em, but there were rumors that Obsidian was considered to be working on a New Vegas 2 on top of Outer Worlds 2. Because
that
they're
was
now part of the same
recent-ish,
company.
I remember that.
So they're not going to decanonize that one.
No.
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
then-
I think they're just gonna not address it. That there will be hints of things. They'll talk about Kaiser's Legion. They'll talk about the NCR. I think that they will purposefully leave it vague.
Yeah.
Okay.
There'll
I
be
like
a yes
that
man.
answer.
There'll be a yes man robot somewhere though. That I would be
Somewhere.
shocked
Alright.
if they don't have a single living yes man robot somewhere.
Is that
Alright,
what's
and
on
Nico?
your background?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nico, I have a different question for you. I want you
Yeah.
to bullshit me an answer. Make it sound
Okay.
like you know what you're talking about, even though
Sure.
you don't.
What's
About
the
what
question?
ending you think is canon
Oh,
to New
Oh,
Vegas.
oh. Okay, yeah. Well, I have been told, and through everything that I've seen, the Robco guy is just absolutely the greatest heel this side of the Euphrates. And so I would like to see that guy alive so that he could be killed. So whatever ending involves him being alive so that he can
Okay.
then be killed. Yeah.
I like that answer. Good.
Mhm.
I salute that.
Yeah,
Let us
and
know.
I have a question for Trav, actually
Okay.
for everybody,
Yeah.
which is if you had a vault,
Oh,
what would your vault experiment be? Because I have
tell me down below in the comments.
Oh yeah, audience do that as well. Mine is that soap wouldn't kill bacteria. The
It's
soap
just
in,
plastic.
the
Just
soap in
rubbing
that
it-
vault, the soap in that vault
cosmetic
wouldn't
soap.
kill bacteria.
It's just
Oh,
for scent.
man, you asked this in the chat room, and I completely forgot to actually think about it.
Yeah, I
'cause I'm
didn't
like,
think,
ooh,
of,
that could be
I
a
didn't
fun
think of
one.
one.
All right, just
Oh,
off the
that's
top
okay.
of my head, there's no water, only Mountain Dew.
Nice.
That might already
Nice. Look at
there's
Brando.
there's a Nuka-Cola vault somewhere.
It's got to be a
Oh, there's gotta
Nuka-Cola
be.
vault.
There's gotta be.
It's only Nuka Quantum, so it's all glowing blue.
Oh, even better.
Gotcha. Yeah. So we're
Even
just
better.
in idiocracy.
Everyone,
of
dude, like
one.
after a couple generations, everyone's like veins just glow.
Em, what would
the
yours
one
be?
experiment that I always remember is that there are two vaults that are supposed to be very near to each other. One of which has 99 women and one
Oh,
man,
yes.
Oh, yeah.
and one of which has 99 men and one woman. And I feel like those are probably the things I would also come up with.
I think those were vaults 69 and 70. I'm pretty sure. I'm not even kidding. I think that's the
That's
actual
hilarious.
number for
That's
them.
funny.
My vault would be that every member of the vault, every single one that is put into those vaults, must watch all of Crub on loop forever.
I knew you were going to
And
say
make
that.
sure to hit the like button every single time, because if they don't, they are sent to the soapless one.
Yeah.
Let's be fair. It's probably also the soapless one.
The same vault.
So let us know what your vault torture would be, what your vault experiment would be in the comments below. Do make sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. We have a bunch of other side discussions, such as Trav and myself and Chris Mykonos fan talking about The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom when that was fresh, and other ones that I'm forgetting. Oh, Futurama. We did Futurama
Yeah.
Season 11.
I did do Futurama.
Stay tuned for next month. I will be having my own 1 hour podcast. It is a discussion with myself, edited in post, then I react to it in real time. I hope you look forward to that. That's going to be a lot of fun. I just
don't
made
know if
all that
that's
up
a
on the
joke.
spot. I just
How
made
do
all
you
that up on
tell?
the spot.
He's describing the Crub rewind.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that might be an actual thing. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think we will be talking about the Invincible season 2 shortly. Though.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So look forward to all those. If you don't see Invincible Season 2, it might be on the Patreon. So check out the Patreon. And I have no other thoughts because my AC just turned on. So my audio is going to get worse now. So
Valid.
anyone with final thoughts?
I think this gave me the tone of the universe that I didn't have before, perhaps, as a non-player. So excited to see season 2.
Em, final thoughts?
I'm going to bed.
Yeah, no, that was it.
Are you going to bed too?
No, I didn't say anything.
Why not?
But why aren't
Yeah, why
you
not?
going-
I'm
aren't
going
you
to bed.
You know what? I am.
Let's all go to bed. Let's make our vault that we all go to bed, and it's vault cuddles. We all cuddle.
The spooning vault.